What if the most dangerous man alive wasn't the one with a gun, or a title, or an army, but the one who walks alone? Not because he hates people, but because he's freed himself from needing them. No applause, no permission, no safety net. This isn't isolation. This is power. It's the kind of inner independence that philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Friedrich Nietzsche saw as the greatest threat, and also the greatest hope for society. In a world built on emotional and social dependencies, the man who cannot be bribed with comfort, coerced by fear, or flattered by approval is untouchable. He's dangerous, not because he attacks others, but because his very existence exposes their weakness. Most people don't want to face how dependent they truly are, on validation, on attention, on routine. But when one man breaks free, others start asking questions. That's revolutionary. So today, we're going deep. We'll explore the mind of this independent man through the eyes of ancient and modern wisdom, specifically Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, and Nietzsche, the philosopher of the abyss. We'll look at why this figure is feared, misunderstood, and yet secretly envied. And more importantly, why becoming that man might be the most important thing you ever do. 1. The man who stands alone, Marcus Aurelius and Stoic freedom. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, but his true kingdom was within. In Meditations, he speaks not like a ruler giving orders, but like a man quietly building a fortress of the soul. He writes, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." For Aurelius, power wasn't about controlling others, it was about mastering oneself. And that self-mastery begins when you no longer rely on others to affirm your worth. This inner detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. When Marcus says, "It's not things that trouble us, but our judgments about things," he's pointing to a radical idea, that freedom lies not in what happens to you, but in how you respond. And that means if your peace depends on people treating you a certain way or the world being a certain way, then you're already enslaved. The Stoic man breaks that chain. He lives by reason, not by reaction. Now imagine a man like that in today's world, indifferent to social media praise, unshaken by criticism, unwilling to compromise his values for popularity. That man threatens the entire framework of modern validation. His silence speaks louder than a million tweets. His calmness in crisis humiliates the performative outrage we see daily. He doesn't need to prove anything, because he already knows who he is. That's why he's feared. Because he cannot be used. 2. Nietzsche's Übermensch, the creator of values. Nietzsche saw what most people couldn't stomach, that modern society is built on inherited values. Morals, customs, beliefs we never question. His idea of the Übermensch, or overman, is not a superhuman in strength, but in spirit. It is the person who dares to ask, what if I created my own values? The man who doesn't need anyone is the one who is willing to face life's chaos without leaning on traditional comforts. That man becomes a creator, not a follower. The Übermensch doesn't rebel for the sake of rebellion. He transcends. He doesn't reject morality to be evil. He leaves behind borrowed morals to forge his own compass. Nietzsche writes, "Man is something that shall be overcome." He's saying that most of us are just sophisticated animals driven by fear and comfort, but the man who overcomes those instincts, who lives out of will, not weakness, is rare and dangerous, because he shows others they too could rise, if they dared. Society resents this man because he makes it harder to lie to ourselves. His freedom is confrontational. He doesn't escape into religion, politics, or escapism. He stares directly into the abyss and walks through it. He forces a mirror onto those still asleep in borrowed beliefs. And unlike many so-called rebels, he doesn't need a movement. He doesn't need followers. He doesn't even need recognition. He's free on a level most people can't comprehend, and that makes him subversive. 3. Dependence is control, the hidden chains. Most people live in quiet dependence on relationships, careers, technology, and especially the opinions of others. We often confuse connection with necessity. But dependency is the oldest form of control. When you need something badly, you become predictable, and predictability is easy to manipulate. This is the silent architecture of power. Social media exploits this to perfection. Every like, every comment, every follow is a dopamine hit that teaches you, do more of this to be accepted. Before long, your self-worth becomes tied to numbers, trends, and digital validation. This isn't connection, it's voluntary enslavement. And the terrifying truth? Most people don't even realize they're trapped. But now imagine someone who sees through it. Someone who doesn't flinch when ignored. Who doesn't chase praise. Who doesn't fear being alone. That person is deeply unsettling because they don't respond to the bait. They can't be bought. They can't be coerced. They don't need permission to live with dignity. That man is a walking glitch in the matrix, and the system doesn't like glitches. 4. The secret wisdom, the inner citadel revisited. There's a reason both ancient Stoicism and Eastern philosophy teach non-attachment, whether it's Marcus Aurelius, the Buddha, or even Taoist sages. There's a consistent message. Freedom begins when the inner world is no longer held hostage by the outer world. The true sage is not moved by insults or compliments. He is rooted in his being. This doesn't mean detachment from love, family, or society. It means not being ruled by them. You love, but you don't cling. You serve, but you don't submit. You care, but your identity isn't built on being cared for. This level of maturity is rare, and that's why the man who achieves it isn't just free. He becomes a beacon of what's possible. The inner citadel is real, but building it takes silence, hardship, solitude, and brutal honesty. Few are willing to walk that road. But those who do, they become unbreakable. Not because the world stops hurting them, but because nothing outside can govern what's within. 5. The greatest threat and the greatest hope. So why is the man who doesn't need anyone the greatest threat to society? Because he can't be corrupted. He can't be recruited into mindless causes. He doesn't cheer for the mob, nor fear its wrath. He thinks for himself. And in a world built on collective programming, this is revolutionary. He threatens not through violence, but by example. He shows others that they, too, can walk freely. And if too many do, the old systems of control collapse. But here's the twist. The man who doesn't need anyone is also the greatest hope. He doesn't dominate others. He lifts them. He speaks uncomfortable truths. He stands up to power, not out of ego, but out of principle. He becomes a pillar, not a pawn. And because he doesn't need others to affirm him, his love, his generosity, his leadership are all pure. Nietzsche said, "Become who you are." Marcus said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." They were pointing to the same truth. The path is lonely, but it's also liberating. If even one man becomes truly self-reliant, he shakes the foundation of the false world around him. And if that's not dangerous, then what is? Call to action. If this video sparks something in you, don't let it fade. Sit with it, reflect. Start building your inner citadel today. Because when you no longer need anyone to define you, you finally become someone who can change everything. Subscribe for more philosophical insights like this. And remember, freedom doesn't start when you escape the world. It starts when the world can no longer control you.